The makeup of the area near Herring Run High School, your best recollection, what was the racial makeup like at that time?
What you had to understand is it was back in the early 70s. It was predominantly white. And just to get to school on a bus, you have to go through where the white people lived at. And they lived all around Herring Run. I would say it was like 87% whites there opposed to blacks living there.
Okay, and the racial makeup of this community at that time?
Oh, very slim. This was like a 70-30. People just start moving in, you know, people that had fortunate enough to have a job down Spurs Point, because that was one of the biggest jobs that was offered to anyone in the city, and that considered the middle class job.
When you consider where things and how they turned out now, if you could roll back the clock and give a warning regarding the education system as you knew it then, what would you say to them?
I would say you need to pay more attention, being more assertive of what you're doing with your children, whether they black, white, Latino, or Asian. You need to treat everyone the same and give everybody the correct material to prepare themselves for life and and have a good job as we know it or thought about it. But at this particular time, you had a few generations of not being able to receive the correct teachers, principals. The state board was different, and most of those that was on the state board were white. I hate to make it sound like a racial issue, but the material that they gave us to learn with or to advance ourselves wasn't up to par as the other schools was, and which was basically 85% white.
So essentially it was your mother essentially that made sure your grades were up to, well, actually exceeded what was normal, and this is what helped you graduate high school sooner?
Oh, sure. My mother and my family members, because during that particular time you could deal directly with a family member one-on-one, and we used to say spare the rod and spoil the child. So that doesn't mean that you're going to put capital punishment on them. It meant that you will be dealt with in a civilized way. A good spanking would go far, but that would actually get you to realize, let's sit down here and have hope that you will receive a good education, because they made you feel as though you weren't anything in those particular days in the school system. They was there just for a paycheck.
Well, let's talk about some of the more enjoyable parts of your high school years. Did you play any sports at Dunbar?
Yes, I did. I ran track for Dunbar, I wrestled for Dunbar, and I played basketball for Dunbar. So
you were a three-letter man.
Yes, I was, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
So when you had academics, when you competed against the schools that had busing, I imagine at some point you were essentially competing against friends from the neighborhood at a different school. Did they seem to have any advantages over you at that time?
Well, you had to realize it wasn't as many as friends that was in the neighborhood that from East Baltimore that was bused to certain schools. So what I mean is that I might run into one or two black persons that was at a school when we had a competition, but for the foremost, if you wasn't on their team, if you wasn't on the team and predominantly white, when they start allowing us to wrestle Mount St. Joe's and different prestigious white schools, you wouldn't see but one black person there. So I enjoyed it because I knew that I could do what I can do, what I was taught. That's one thing they couldn't take away from me, was my learning on the field of running, on a basketball court, or on a wrestling floor. They couldn't take away that much. So I've never seen as many blacks still wasn't bused to the predominantly white schools at all.
Okay. Let's fast forward to the present. You recognize the abysmal graduation rate. Do you think there's any effect of what took place prior to busing and during busing that soured so many parents' attitude and temperament toward the education system that we have now? And do you think that has an effect on the children that are going to school today?
Oh, sure, because the way that I feel, no one was notified. I hate to keep going back to that era, but no one was notified. If you want to send your child at a specific school, you weren't allowed to. Even through busing, it seemed like it was always hampered from us going to a good school to get the correct education as our counterparts was, which was white. So yes, it had a big impact because the parents could not send you to those schools that had the best materials. So what happens is you lose favor within the school board and everyone. Why didn't you let us know that our child was going to be bused? And then when you was bused, you weren't treated like the rest of the counterpart students that was white.
Okay. So let's look at it from a different perspective. In spite of all that, you and a lot of your contemporaries that you went to school with became successful anyway. You went on to become homeowners, productive members of society. What would you say to the young people now what pitfalls do you think you could tell them to avoid in the future regarding the education system?
Number one, never give up. You have to go and keep applying for what you want to apply through the school system. Okay, now they have various methods that they will loosen the belt hold a little bit to allow you to get in a certain school. Then, now you have parents that do get more involved with their children's life because they have a little trust in the school system as opposed to not having any trust in all. And I know a lot of people that turn pro in basketball, pro in wrestling, a few guys in boxing, a few, athletes that went on to succeed. But the school system right now is still not up to par in giving that individual, in my opinion, a good education without thinking it's just for a paycheck, in which it could be difficult for a teacher not to want to get up and come to school and they're not receiving any money to go do this. So the whole school system at this point in time, to me, teachers need to grab their job very serious along with pay. They're not getting paid properly. So a lot of people are just there for a job.
Is there anything that, for the oral record, that you would just like to say regarding just education in general? If there's always been something you just wanted to say, just your piece of history as far as education Is there anything you would like to say?
I would like to say that if we can pull our resources together and the people that's in City Hall, combine them, and you know what's going on in City Hall, and the school system know what's happening, you maintain a good, correct outcome with the youth. Give them something to do. Let them be creative. Do not take and close the recs down, which they have been doing. The outlet for a child or a teenager right now is very limited on what they can do. We need more intervention with the younger folks. If you don't grab that young man or that young lady, or don't have no one out here to look out for them, they have nothing to do. What is that for that? They have nothing to do at all but stand on the corners. There's no job. So give them something to do. Put them in pilot programs. Put them in open a center, art program. Put GED program. But you got to be able to keep. You have to be able to enforce that I'm going to give you this. Don't say I'll do this. And I feel that you have somebody in the field that's out there. If you can vote for someone, why can't you take these people out there and have them talk to the kids that's in education to make their education more higher?
Thank you.